I hope you've been practicing your games of capture the flag using the pawns that we looked at in lesson number 1. If you haven't, you can always go back to revise your knowledge on lesson number 1. You'll find it in the links below. But meanwhile, we're going to take a look at another piece today. This piece is the Rook, R-O-O-K, Rook. We'll find out how he moves. We'll show you a nice little mini game to play. And if you're following our CSC worksheets, activity sheets, and the Kahoot quizzes, this all relates to the number 2 on those items also. So everything ties in, you see, to increase your knowledge. The Rook, you can move as far as he wants forwards. You can move as far as he wants backwards. And you can move as far as he wants sideways. Both sides, just like that. He's not allowed to move on the diagonals though, not even one square. But he's very, very good at moving forwards, backwards, or sideways. In fact, if it's in the corner, if you wanted to, you could go all the way to the opposite corner of the board in just one move. Or across the board to this corner in one move. But the Rook is not allowed to go down the long diagonal to reach the opposite corner there in one move. But perhaps you could have a little think about how many moves it would take him to get from H1 all the way to A8. Something to think about. We start the game with 4 rooks, and they're sat in the corners of the boards. White has rooks on A1 and H1, and black has rooks on A8 and H8. It's useful now to continue to build up our chessboard. We looked at the pawns in video lesson number 1, and now we have the rooks on the board. Let's see how that looks when we put it together. Here we are. All of the pawns, all of the rooks. We have 6 gaps on each of the back lines. 6 gaps in white's position, 6 gaps in black's position. And we are going to fill those gaps up over the course of the next 4 lessons. And now onto our mini game with the Rook. This one's called the Rampage in Rook. The Rook's on the rampage. He's got some things to do here, but he's up against an army of pawns. It's 1 Rook against 5 black pawns. And the pawns are all side by side, so they can help each other a little bit. The rules of the game are these. If white can capture all of the black pawns, he will win. If black has 1 pawn left, and white can block that pawn, stand in front of it to stop it moving, then white also wins. White does not win by going to the end of the board, because that would be rather easy. All he would do is this. Too easy. He's not allowed to win by doing that. He can go to the end of the board if he wants to, but he's not going to win the game. From black's point of view, black needs to get 1 pawn safely to the end of the board. Safely means that white cannot capture it on the next move, so he's got to time it very carefully, or he would capture the white rook to win the game. So each side has 2 ways to win. Let's take a look at those in greater detail. In this position, it's white's move. Black has 1 pawn left. White has still got his very strong rook. And to win the game, he could block the pawn. He can move his rook from E4 to A4. The black pawn can't move, even though it's black's move, so black loses. And white wins, blocking the pawn. White could win by capturing the pawn, of course. There's 1 pawn left here on A2. It's almost at the end of the board. If it was black's move now, black could win. But it's white's move, so white can actually sweep across and capture the last black pawn, and white would win the game. Black's got nothing left to move. Black can win in 2 ways, of course. He could capture the white rook. In this position, if the rook is a little bit careless, it captures the black pawn. And if black's concentrating, you should be able to see that instead of moving the pawn to C4, it can actually capture the white rook. Black wins. White's got nothing left. Or black can win by moving his pawn to the end, as in this position. It's black's move, and white can do nothing with his rook to prevent the pawn from getting to the end of the board. Just going to move there, and the game will be over. Black will win. It's important, though, to get your pawn to the end of the board in safety. And sometimes it will be, and sometimes it won't be. You've got to time it very, very carefully. In this position, for example, it looks like black can win the game by moving his pawn to the end of the board. But unfortunately for him, white has played this very well. White's got the rook in the right position to sweep across and capture the pawn as soon as it lands. So white wins this one. It looked very good for black, but white had it all worked out. Well done, white. Back to the position that you're going to play your mini games from, the position for the rampaging rook. Is the rook better than the pawns? Can the pawns beat the rook? We can tell by looking at this, the value of the pieces is now starting to take shape. If we think of the pawns as being worth 1 point each, we can easily work out from here that the rook is going to be worth 5 points, or the same as 5 pawns. It gives a very nice balance of power. If we played this game with fewer pawns, if for example we tried just 4 pawns against the rook would have a big advantage. And if it was more than 5 pawns, black would have the advantage. And this balances things out very nicely. 1 rook playing against 5 pawns. Give that a try. Have some nice mini games against your friends or your family. Link it in with the CSE worksheets number 2 and the Kahoot quizzes, and soon you'll be the master of this piece. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. We'll see you again for the next piece, which will actually be the bishop. Thank you very much.